Hello and welcome to the Caspian podcast with me, Mark Elliott, and today with Gwendolyn Burchell, who has been living in Azerbaijan, well, on and off, largely, I believe, since 1997. I hope I've got that right. She puts as her title on LinkedIn as Social Policies Advisor, but I know that she's absolutely best known as the founder of the United Aid For Azerbaijan, and I hope you'll be able to tell those who don't know what that is, what that does and how it got you an MBE.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Well, yeah, I mean, I first came to Azerbaijan towards the end of 1997, and really it was an adventure. It started out as an adventure. I certainly had no plan to sort of build this big NGO and dedicate half my life to what we've been doing. But you know, all adventures start somewhere and turn out in in this kind of way, don't they? So
tell people basically what is the charity that you started. Because I think for people that haven't seen it, just so we know, we set the guidelines here.
Okay, so UEFA, as I call it, United Aid for Azerbaijan, is its mission is to aid long-term development of life in Azerbaijan with a particular focus on children, health, and education. And our main objectives are they come from a time when I visited a children's institution for children with disabilities, where every child was lying in bed, hurting themselves, it was horrible conditions. It was a time when, in the post-Soviet period, many things were being found out about how children with disabilities were being kept, and so I visited these institutions and saw these awful visions, scenes of children all sort of lying in bed or tied to their bed or hitting their head against the wall, and all sorts of awful things. And at that point you just say to yourself, you can't just walk away from that and just not do anything about it. You have to. So that was the starting point of UEFA's main body of work, which was to prevent that from happening. And so during all these years, all our mission, all our focus has been spent on putting in place services for children with disabilities and their families in their communities to provide the support they need in their home, in their village, in their town.
So this is a way to get the children out of the institutionalized situation and into a situation that's a little better.
To prevent them from being placed in care in the first place. Families put their children in care when they feel unable to cope, or because they're told that's what you should do when you have a child with disability, because of stigma issues. So they feel forced to in a lot of cases, or parents split up. You've got a single mother if you're on your own, you cannot cope with looking after a child with disabilities and work at the same time. It's not possible. So there are many situations. Every case is different. And so what we have been working on is building the sort of range of health and education and social services that families and parents need to give them an alternative to putting their children in care, and to support the inclusion of children to education, and to give these children their rights to live as a normal part of society as any other child. So that's been the mission, and that's why it's why I'm still here 23 years later, because it's not an overnight job. It takes years and years and years.
Well, have a vague memory of meeting you right when you were first there, and you went to around to a lot of the expats at the time, telling us that you discovered these terrible things going on. And from what I seem to, I think I've read it somewhere that you had 500 quid to start this charity, but I don't know if I'm right, but I think I read somewhere that you've since raised over $5 million. Is that true?
Probably more than double that by now. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But that gives a sort of sense of the scale of what you've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I spend majority of my time doing, is trying to raise the money to keep all these services running, to find the practice, the approaches that we need, to bring in trainers, it's a huge scale job we work in 22 regions of Azerbaijan.
Wow.
We had, at one stage, we had about 150 people on the payroll. So, it's a large scale job, and, when you're paying that many people, it all adds up pretty quick.
Well, now, what was your background then? So did you come to Azerbaijan thinking that you would be working in the NGO sector, or do you just? I gather your father had actually worked briefly in Azerbaijan. Was that part of what spurred you? How did you get the whole idea of coming to Azerbaijan in the first place?
Well, yeah, my dad had been coming since '92. He was working with SOCAR and helping them on developing the early first contract, helping them find investors, and that was his sort of role, was working with them to get things moving here in the oil and gas sector. And so I met a lot of Azerbaijanis before I came here. I started hearing a lot about Azerbaijan at a time when everybody just knew this part of the world as Russia. And yeah, exactly. That's what we thought. It was just Russia. We didn't know all these individual countries. So I was interested, to visit this part of the world that nobody knew anything about. When do you get a chance to do something like that? Once in a lifetime. And I had been working in the charity sector in the UK, and found that it was a sector that I really felt satisfied working in. So I'd been working with the Samaritans for a couple of years as volunteer. I've been working with children's charity that supported terminally ill children and their families, learning how to do all the fundraising and the administrative side of running a charity. So, I got the practical side and the administrative side in my previous, for a couple of years before coming out. And so I just
have to ask, what was the biggest surprise about the Azerbaijan that you discovered in 1997, which I mean, is an utterly different country to anyone visiting now, 25 years later, or 23 years later, would find a sort of a fairly modern, glitzy city. But what was your first image, or what did you tell people back home that Baku looked like?
There weren't many cars, that's for sure. And it was quite grey and concretey, that sort of old Soviet utility style of building. I mean, it was very, very much like that. Not many shops, there were no like bars, restaurants, cafes. It was a very sort of utilitarian city, let's put it that way. And I spent a lot of time just walking around, just learning how to sort of navigate my way around the city. But one thing that really surprised me coming here and talking to people was I found out that World War II had a different side to it. This is what surprised me, because we never got taught this at school. That Hitler's army was advancing towards Baku because they needed oil to fuel their mission in World War II. And then Stalin put in place his army to prevent that, and that was a major contributor to the end of the Second World War. And we don't hear that story in the West, do we? So that always remains to me. It's like, oh my God, this whole different side of life, this whole different side of the story. And that was, I suppose you could say, it was my first understanding that what we read in the media, what we read in our books, is not the objective truth. No, that's for me, true. That was like a real big eye-opener. Yeah.
Now, at some point, I'm presuming that you've taught yourself Azerbaijani, or did you speak some Russian? How did you cope culturally and in terms of language? I mean, because you went into action very, very fast. I'm sort of, how did you manage it?
Yeah. My dad gave me some very good pieces of advice in the very early stages. He said, always smile and be friendly to everybody, always, because you never know when, they're your support if you get into trouble. If everybody around you knows you're this friendly person, they might be there to help you when you need their help. And that's come true many times. And he also said, whenever you're negotiating with somebody in a Muslim country, always make sure it's a win-win situation. Don't let anybody lose face. And I practiced that ever since then as well. So with regards to language, I have to confess, I'm not fluent by any means. I mean, I can get by. And what I found in the early days was everybody wanted to practice their English on me. So it was very hard to actually get anywhere with the local language. And most people were speaking this hybrid of Azerbaijani and Russian. So they start in Russian, switch into Azeri, then go back to Russian again. It's quite confusing, actually. But I learned what I needed to get by. And I think over the years, I've just got very adept at body language, and you can understand everything through body language, as well, of course, knowing words, knowing phrases, knowing intonation, this type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I've managed. So yeah,
no, because
I'm not very good at English either.
Well, one of the things that congratulations, by the way, I gather that it was last week you were accepted as an Azerbaijani citizen. Have I got that right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right, yeah.
So how? I mean, I know if you go the other way around, there's often an awful lot of hurdles one has to cross, and I don't think I've actually talked to someone that's done this, becoming an Azerbaijani citizen. How difficult is it, and what are the hardest things that you have to do to become an Azerbaijani?
Well, I think the simple answer is you can't. It was by presidential order. Basically, I wrote to the president and said, I have dedicated half my life. I love Azerbaijan, and please make me a citizen. I know you can't have dual citizenship, but please, can you give me this special dispensation? And it happened.
Wow, is that right? So you are. So when I say I haven't many people that have done it, that's because it doesn't happen normally. That's fantastic. Congratulations. And I mean, have you talked to the president in person?
No, but I remember in early years before he was president, when he was with SOCA, and I was at a function with my dad, and he went, "Oh, look, there's Ilham. Let's go over and say hello." So I went over and I was like, "Hi, Mike. Hi. Oh, this is my daughter, Gwen. Oh, hi, Gwen." Shook hands and everything. So I met him then. before he was president.
And so let's look at the other side. When you in 2004 you were granted an MBE for your services to helping children in Azerbaijan, and I mean, I've seen the video. You do meet the Queen, and it looks like you talk for a little while. And I have to say again,
Yeah.
I'm rather intrigued to know, well, what did she say? What did you tell her? What was the conversation? I know it's a little petty, but
my big mistake is I didn't write it down afterwards. I should have done, because now I can't really remember. But I do remember, she was asking about Azerbaijan, what I was doing there. I remember her being very, very well informed about the country and the situation and ours. And, so yes, she was talking to me for quite a while. And my big regret is I didn't write it all down afterwards. But, you're so caught up in the moment. It's so exhilarating, exciting. You just, don't think about these things. But yes, it was. And also I was really desperately trying to stay upright because I was wearing high heels and I'd not long given birth to my son, and you had to walk backwards. So you walk to her, she talked to you, and then when she's finished with you, she kind of holds your hand and gives you a little push, and you have to walk backwards and curtsy. So I was mainly thinking, do not fall over, do not fall over.
You hope she doesn't push you too hard.
Yeah.
So did you take your son with you?
No, he was just a little baby. So he stayed at home. My parents came.
So now, is your son in Azerbaijan? Is he becoming an Azerbaijani? Is he an Azerbaijani?
Yes, he was also given this citizenship as well. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
So he's grown up. Yeah. He does speak fluent Azerbaijani and Russian. Yeah, I made sure, because I was so rubbish at languages, I made sure he was good at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's truly a gift. So you're once again helping children in all kinds of ways. Now, the other thing that I noticed that you, as we say, you've raised millions of dollars, and you've had some very interesting different ways of going about this. Now, I remember at one point you were taking over a guest house in Ivanovka.
Oh yeah.
Which maybe didn't work, but I mean,
did that for a little while. Mm-hmm. It was too labor intensive. If you do that, you've got to do that as your full-time thing.
Yeah.
But now what we've done since then is we've opened up this handmade chocolates business, Enjoy Chocolates. So we make chocolates with Azerbaijani flavors. So all the flavors you typically see here, like Reyhan and Tahun, purple basil, tarragon, sumac, pomegranate, cognac, lemon. So all the ingredients are from Azerbaijan, and we've made these very unusual blends, and it's like cream, and then encased in Belgian chocolate. Absolutely delicious. We've just expanded the range to ice cream as well, and we've opened up a little shop in the old city. So the idea, we've already been running this for a couple of years online, and now we've opened up the shop, and the idea is that this generates the income that we need to fund our services. So it's a little bit early days, but we'll make it work.
What a wonderful idea. So you're using Belgian chocolate, but local flavors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have who is making the chocolate? I mean, that's no easy matter, is it? There's quite a challenge to making a good.
Yeah. Well, I've got a local lady who makes them, but we all learnt. It was myself, an American chef, and an English amateur chef, and the three of us sort of put our heads together in the early stages to come up with these flavors and learn how to make chocolates. And then we asked this local lady that I knew, who was a very good cook. She joined us, learned how to make them, and we've just been building our skills since then.
Wow. Now, we're getting a little near the end. Just before I forget to do it, if people want to contribute to what you call UEFA, I always called it UEFA, but UEFA sounds like football to me.
Yeah,
But
I know.
But if people want to contribute, are you looking for donations? Do you mainly have corporate sponsors, or is it mainly chocolate?
Everything. No, I mean that's how I've been raised all these years, is from every single source possible. If anybody, please just get in touch. We always need. We don't do project by project, and then I've kept all my staff for, continuously. I don't get to an end of project and say, right, project's ended, goodbye. We've been building their skills, building their experience. And if they don't, we have to ensure that everybody stays in their work. They have to keep providing services. The children need the services day in, day out. We can't stop. So, yes, donations.
Right. And how approximately how many children are
anywhere possible would be fantastic.
And sorry, approximately how many children?
Approximately how many?
Yeah.
In a year, well, pre-COVID, obviously during COVID, that made things challenging. But pre-COVID, we were working directly with about 3,000 children a year. 3,000,
thank you. Well, Gwen, just to finish it off, you want, when I asked you the sort of things you like to talk about, you rather obliquely said, well, what about the spirit of adventure? So sum it up for us. What gives you a spirit of adventure, and what would be a lesson that you can give us all on that?
Well, I suppose for me, this has been 23 years, and every single day has been different. And challenging, and there have been humongous challenges and hurdles to overcome, but we've always done it, and people have said, oh, that's impossible, you'll never manage that. It's just not going to happen. We do it because we believe in what we're doing, and then other people believe in us, and we get past all these challenges. Azerbaijan is a difficult country. It's a challenging country, and so the fact that we've managed to keep going and growing and achieve a lot of not just working with children, but policy change, legislative change, pushed for so many different reforms and achieved them. I think that's a real that shows how dedicated the team have been all these years, and I think that's where the adventure comes in, because it can be a lot of fun as well.
Yes, and we were talking to Svante Cornell a week or two ago, and he was saying that a lot of these challenges, a country that sort of suddenly appears from nowhere almost, and that's a little bit obviously unfair, but with the sudden collapse of the Soviet Union, there was so much needed doing, and it does take an enormous amount of vision from a few people with real energy and vision. And obviously, Gwen, thank you very much for being one of those great people that's done it. And I will just remind people, if you'd like to read more about the charity, it's uafa.az, I believe. And we'll put a link on there. You've been listening to the Caspian podcast with me, Mark Elliott, and Gwen Burchell MBE. Thank you very much, Gwen. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Mark.